Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching Startup Central right here on ET Now with me, Sumita Karir. Over the next 30 minutes, we'll be taking a look at all the stories that are making headlines this Monday evening right here on Startup Central. And tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we put the spotlight on UPI. Well, India's world-beating digital payment service is at the center of a heated debate over who should pay for its popularity. Remember, UPI has had zero MDR or merchant discount rate, which is a levy for using digital payments since 2020. This was as part of the government's push to accelerate digital payments. But now, the pace of expansion, as many say, could change. The government could be paving the way for the return of merchant discount rate or MDR on UPI, particularly for high-value merchant transactions. A legislative amendment this month allows the government to permit a fee on UPI, but then once merchants start paying a certain tax, who's to stop them from passing on to consumers? But Finance Ministry has reassured users that they won't. In a clarification, the ministry over the weekend said that no charges will be levied on UPI users. They also said that as and when MDR charges are introduced, they will apply only to a limited set of merchant transactions. But the ministry has raised a critical point amidst all of this. The ministry says that reliance on subsidies alone is not really viable for the next wave of growth of UPI. But payment companies, ladies and gentlemen, even fintechs argue that without a revenue model, there is limited incentive to keep investing aggressively in the UPI ecosystem. We weigh in the pros and cons of this possible policy move with Dinesh Khara. He's the ex-chairman at SBI. Thank you very much, Mr. Khara, for joining us here on ET Now, and that too at such a short notice. The Finance Ministry has issued a clarification that MDR won't be brought in. But the question then is, why are amendments in Section 10A of the PSS bill being moved, given that these will have enabling provisions?
Well, the situation is that for 2016, there used to be MDR. And thereafter, this was discontinued, particularly when the introduction of the QR code and the UPI became popular. That was the point of time it was discontinued. The essential idea was to have the wider acceptance of the acceptance ecosystem as well as for the users. So I think now through this enablement which has come in, the central government can lay down the rules relating to for where the MDR will be applied, where it will not be applied. We have seen that, it has led to a situation where almost about 40% of the adult population have started using UPI, and which is as high as about 430 odd million in the country. But also, I would like to mention that a significant amount of that is into low value. And when it comes to MDR waiver, this was actually irrespective of the amount. So I think it is leading to a situation where, the service providers are required to incur a huge amount of expenditure in terms of upgrading their technology, ensuring their cybersecurity resilience, etc., etc. So I think through this enablement, the government will be empowered to decide for which all value of transactions MDR should be levied, and for which all transactions MDR will not be levied.
Absolutely, Mr. Khara. The centre will have the final say as far as the implementation of MDR is concerned. However, as of now, this is not getting implemented. But are you suggesting that there is no cause of concern to consumers?
See, actually, if at all you will look at it, even merchants are also incurring a cost. If at all, they are not going for the digital transaction acceptance, then they will have to handle cash or they will have to handle checks. So there's a cost involved into that. And apart from that, by virtue of this convenience which is being offered through the digital payments, the merchants are in a position to have the buying of a very large number of customers. So I think they will have to probably weigh the options, and perhaps it's a cost of doing business. I would put it like this, and I think prior to 2016, it was very much there in the system. So it is not that it is something new. And also, I would like to bring into your notice, I mean, countries like Brazil, countries like China, they have got the digital payment acceptance as high as 90%, whereas we have just about 40%. And there is a merchant discount rate. And also, uh, actually, with the merchant discount rate being made available, all the players in the ecosystem can promote the acceptance of the digital payment system. So I think if at all there is, as of now, when the subsidy was being offered by the GOI for entities which are handling the digital payments, it was just about 10 odd percent of the total cost being incurred by them. So naturally, over the period of time, it was being perceived more as a hygiene function than as a growth function for various commercial organizations. So I would say that this is one such step which will ensure that the commercial entities invest well in terms of upgrading their ecosystem, upgrading their technology, and also it will actually provide more facilities for merchant as well as for customers in due course.
Right, that's an important point that you've made, Mr. Khara, with respect to Brazil and China. But let me come back to what the Finance Ministry said on the matter of self-sustainability. It said that reliance on subsidies alone is not really viable for the next phase of growth of UPI. But then the subsidy that's been allocated for UPI, is that of a considerable amount? And can India not afford to bear this cost to continue building on gains and laurels of the past with respect to UPI?
No, as I was mentioning, when it comes to the subsidies which were being passed on to the ecosystem players, it was just about 10% of the cost being incurred by them. So naturally, any such kind of a thing will not be self-sustainable. And apart from that, this was also a burden on the exchequer. So I would say that through the market mechanism, if at all, it can be borne by the merchants. And also, merchants are actually it is actually substituting their cost of doing the business to some extent. So it's a different story that between 2016 and now they were not having any cost, but now again this will be reintroduced. And I think what I feel is that maybe low value transactions will continue to be out of the purview of MDR, but high value transactions will come into the purview of MDR.
Absolutely. So some balance needs to be struck, especially when it comes to the commercial viability of UPI versus, of course, passing on the benefits to consumers. But let me take one more point from what the Finance Ministry said. In fact, the ministry ruled out the implementation of MDR immediately, but they said that if applied, they will apply to a limited set of merchants. Now, the question is, once that is applied, why wouldn't merchants pass on the costs to consumers? And this is because a fee of 0.25%, let's say, for example, that could be seemingly small, but it could influence merchant behavior because merchants process thousands of transactions.
See, as of now, also there's a cost of doing the business. So if at all, they will actually start looking at it as a cost of doing the business. And if at all, the service providers can offer the value for the service which they are providing. So I think as I mentioned, that it used to be there in the past. It is not that it was not there in the past, and there was a digital adoption which was happening. So I think my sense is that they will perceive it as a cost of doing business, and it will certainly, they may or may not pass depending upon their competitive strength as compared to the customer as.
All right, Mr. Khara, of course, we'll have to wait and see how this really pans out. But definitely, this is a conversation which has started in a conversation that needs to be had both to ensure the commercial viability of UPI and, of course, to build on the laurels of the past, on gains of the past when it comes to digital payments. Remember, we have expanded to so many countries, and, of course, that momentum must continue. Thank you very much once again for joining us here on Startup Central.